Ćao svima, dobrodošli u podcast Ibex. Moje ime je Petar Pešić i kroz ovaj podcast istražujem kako izabrati profesionalni put i kako razvijati karijeru. Želimo da kroz razgovore sa mladim profesionalcima iz čitave regije, Ibex-ovcima kako ih zovem, dođemo do saveta, tipova, strategija kako vi možete svoju karijeru dalje razvijati i kako možete izabrati svoj profesionalni put. Povežite se sa nama na društvenim mrežama, pretplatite se na naš YouTube kanal i zapratite nas na svim audio platformama na kojima slušate svoje podcaste. Također, ukoliko želite da podržite naš rad, možete nas podržati uplatama preko Patreona i Paypala, a svi linkovi se nalaze u opisu epizode. Realizaciju ove epizode podržali su naši prijatelji iz No Limit Huba. No Limit Hub je community organizacija koja postiče razvoj preduzetništva i start-upa, podržava IT zajednicu na jugu Srbije i sve mlade ljude sa željama, sa vizijom inicijative ka promjenama i aktivizmu. Danas pravimo prvi specijal. Ove epizode ćemo s vremena na vreme raditi kada se ukaže prilika, a u tim specijalima ćemo imati posebne Ibex-e. To su ljudi koje retko gde možete čuti, a koji imaju štošta da kažu i o biranju karijere, i o razvoju profesije, a i o struci u kojoj rade. Prvi specijal radimo sa gospodinom Corey Amos-om, mojim prijateljem iz United States of America, SAD-a, koga sam upoznao u Queen's College-u na Cambridgeu koji smo obojica pohađali. Pričali smo o tome kako zapravo izgleda odrastati i obrazovati se u Americi, koje su to najvažnije lekcije koje je on pokupio iz života u Kini, Engleskoj, putovanja po čitavoj Americi, kao i jednoj posebnoj temi, a to je tema cyber bezbednosti. Dok nisam počeo da radim u IT industriji, nisam ni znao šta podrazumeva ova oblast. Velikom brzinom se razvija i uključuje je i u tradicionalne industrije koje možda ne vidimo kao IT. Sada je ta tema jako aktuelna i gotovo svake nedelje imamo u poslovnim vestima neki događaj koji pokazuje nedostatke u cyber bezbednosti. U ovom razgovoru ćete čuti šta se podrazumeva pod ovim pojmom, kako raditi u oblasti cyber bezbednosti, ali i u perspektivi razvoja informacionih tehnologija i o tome šta nas čeka. Razgovor je vođen na engleskom jeziku i usled njegovog kratkog boravka u Srbiji snimljen je samo u audio formatu. Tako da, Ibex-ovci, vreme je da čujemo kako se ovaj Ibex penje na vrh. Pažljivo slušajte. So, Corey, welcome to Ibex podcast. I hope you are having a good time in Serbia. So, can you tell me a bit more about your experience of Serbia so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I didn't know quite what to expect when I was coming here. We just hear generalities about the Balkans or Eastern Europe. So, my overall impression is everyone has been super nice, very welcoming. When I first landed in Belgrade, I didn't exactly have people showing me around, so I just had recommendations like, hey, go to this bar, go to that bar for a while. So I went out. The bartenders have been phenomenal. Most everyone speaks English, which is helpful for me because I don't speak any other languages. So the people, to me, have been the most outstanding, and I think that it speaks to the culture that I've become to experience more and more going out to the kafanas, all of that. So it's been quite interesting and very positive, and I will definitely be making a return trip because it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you're now in Christmas time, New Year's time. It's kind of very full in a lot of places, and there are a lot of events going on, especially in Belgrade. But as I said to you, we can't wait for you to come here during the summer when the festivals are going around throughout the Serbia. But speaking of the news or like the information that you're getting, we kind of have a perception that you only hear bad stuff about the Balkans, about Serbia. I'm guessing it's true, but I would like to hear your opinion.
So it's I wouldn't say it's all bad. I wouldn't even say it's mostly bad, but we kind of get the impressions that Eastern Europeans or the Balkans are a little bit of outlaws, they're kind of like some renegades, but I've found that to be quite untrue, at least from my experiences personally. Perhaps locally that's a little bit different, but as far as treating me as a foreigner or an international, that hasn't been the case. But I think it's just we don't really know what to think, and it's easy to misinterpret comments or concepts in media when they're not here. So yeah, I would say a little outlandish, a little outlaw, a little renegade nature is kind of the most common what we hear in the media. But yeah, lately a lot of your basketball players have been in the media, so it's a bit of positive coverage because they're doing quite well right now in the NBA. So yeah, other than that, I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly negative, but there's a little bit of like, hey, what are those guys over there doing?
Yeah. We're kind of very proud of our sports players in general, basketball-wise, tennis, obviously. But yeah, we're not that popular or like not that into some of the American professional sports, other professional sports like NFL or NHL or something like that. But there are some players of Serbian origin playing hockey, for example. I think one is in Boston Bruins or something like that. But anyways, more specific because my city is niche, and I'm like very proud of having you here. And I want to thank you for making the effort to come here. I know it was kind of tiresome going on a bus ride to niche, but anyways. So I mean, obviously we've only been here for 24 hours. You're yet to see some of the more specifics of the city, but can you tell me a bit more about your impressions so far?
Yeah, so it's I grew up in a small area, so I prefer a little more laid back, smaller, less hustle. We would call hustle and bustle. Yeah. Because you can get into like, not that Belgrade is as large as New York, but it's quite a. When you go out, you get a sense of immediacy and a sense of urgency of like, I got to go here. It's much more upbeat, higher pace, whereas here seems a lot more laid back. Reminds me a lot more of home or where I live currently in the United States. So yeah, I think that's the one thing I've liked the most is it seems a lot more laid back and chill.
Yeah. Speaking of the place of your origin or where you're living, can you tell me a bit more about it and how it felt growing up in those places?
Yeah. So I grew up about 2 hours west of DC in a mountainy area. There's actually a national park there, which is basically the whole industry for where I grew up. It was quite poor for American standards. And the only industry, we have some place called Luray Caverns, which is a big cavern system. A lot of foreigners and Americans from all over the country come and visit that. And then we have the Shenandoah National Park. So those are really the only two industries that draw people to our area. But I currently live in a place called Fairfax, Virginia, which is about 40 minutes west of D.C., and it's more of a suburban area. So it's a much larger population. Yep. I mean, we're talking maybe 20,000 people in my entire county. Or I don't know what the county equivalent is for.
Yeah, we have the same. We call it municipality, but
yeah. So we only had like 20,000. Very rural, very sparsely populated. But Fairfax is much denser, say 400,000 or so. In the whole county. So it's quite close to D.C., which is only, say, 900,000. So it's not as populated as like Belgrade, for example. Yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting area to grow up in. Not a lot of people that I grew up with kind of made it out, so to speak. I imagine like many small local communities. But I always go back. There's no place like home.
Yeah, of course.
Even though I travel a lot, I do enjoy going back home.
So when you say they haven't gone out, so do you mean like they've stayed in that place and they're staying in that place for their entirety of lives? They're not going to like universities or something like that?
Some of them went to universities and returned back home. Okay. But they're quite content. They really like it. I don't know if it's the same here, where a lot of Americans will kind of grow up in the community and just stay there. They quite like it. They go try cities. Some people move, of course, but I would say maybe more than half are quite content living where they grew up, even though they do go out and see. Yeah. They travel, they go on vacations, but they don't. They're not. There's not an urgency to move to the city because we commute a lot, which is a very foreign concept to most Europeans. I mean, there for a while, my dad commuted 3 hours each way. So 6 hours total in the day to go to work. I mean, that's a little bit rare, but 45 minutes,
an hour would be like
it's a very normal commute. That's very normal.
And you're talking about actually driving, not going for a public transport. I don't know, trains or buses.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the public transport system, unless you're in DC properly, doesn't exist. Where I grew up, it's all cars. Everyone's driving to work, and 45 minutes is, I would say, normal, standard. Again, the industry that where we grew up, the closest city to us is 45 minutes away. Okay. So if you're going to work in a plant or retail stores or something, you're driving 45 minutes to get there. And people quite like the seclusion of where I grew up. So people will go to work, but then they come home to their acres, or how do you say here?
So the backyard or something.
To big plots of land where people don't bother them. You know, they have cows and horses and stuff like that. So, a lot of people prefer to be a bit isolated, secluded, have their property, and just live in their own little isolation.
So they're not hustling to go to the city for like at any cost.
No. Actually, one of my friends that I grew up with, he's an electrician, and I was trying to get him a job in the city. Well, he was like, I'd like to make more money. I was like, okay, well, I can get you a job. And then he's like, well, where's it at? And I told him, he's like, no, I don't want to go there. He would make significantly more money, but he didn't want to leave. He was very content. I don't know if that's the same, if that's weird for standards here. No. But
it is different. It is different, to be honest. I mean, people here, if you are from a smaller place that doesn't have like a university, you would go maybe to a bigger city to study. Most of the kids would then remain in that bigger city to work, or maybe move on to Belgrade. It's very centralized, so everybody kind of navigates towards Belgrade. But outside of Belgrade, let's say, the university centers are the ones that, like Niš or Novi Sad, that you will visit, are the ones that actually lead the charge in getting younger people there. But if you think about older generations, they are very content in remaining in that place for the entirety of their lives, and maybe they have a standard day job, let's say. But then in the afternoon, as you have, they would work maybe on their field, or maybe with some, I don't know, cattle or something like that. So it's not that let's say strange for us, but it's considered to be a relic of the past. Whereas at the moment, a lot of people are focused on going to the city. There is like a movement of staying maybe in smaller places, in smaller towns, or even villages, and trying to make your living there, especially with the possibility of remote working or maybe freelancing. It's becoming an option these days. But speaking of commute, did that involve also going to like schools and stuff for you? So you had to go like to school buses, the big yellow ones, to go to like elementary school or something, or? Yeah.
So most of my elementary and high school career, I rode a bus, and the bus comes, picks you up at your driveway, which is in the middle of nowhere. Say, for example, just for context, the town that I live in is 10 minutes from my house. So I have to drive 10 minutes, say 6 miles or so, into town. Okay. So it's,
and there's nothing between your house and towns and like markets and stuff.
Correct.
You have to go into town. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So the bus will come pick you up, and the other kids that live, in your area, and it's about 15 minutes to school, but then if you're going to high school, you have to take a bus another 20 minutes to high school. So, it's very America's very sprawling, and one of the concepts I think is very different than in Europe is the money isn't in the cities, it's in the suburbs of the cities. Okay. And the suburbs of places like Charlottesville, where you get the University of Virginia. University of Virginia brings in a lot of money. They have a lot of professors, very good hospital. The surrounding area, which I live somewhat close to, is that's where all your mega houses are. That's where all the doctors live and the people that make good money. They don't live in the cities.
Okay.
They live in the suburbs. So America's quite sprawling because we have a good infrastructure system like the interstates and highways. People prefer to live off on their own. So you wouldn't mind driving 20 minutes to get into a city. But, I'm struggling to understand in America, it's not that important to be in the city. It's basically what I'm trying to say. So traveling for us
it's kind of a way to go.
Yeah. I mean, getting in my car, if I get in my car and I go almost anywhere, 15, 20 minutes, I know that. Yeah. Like it doesn't bother me. We have like a close tie to our car, an affection, a love for our vehicles. We spend a lot of time in them. We eat in them. We play lots of music in them. So I'm trying to think about how to articulate this concept.
I think you're getting
It's very
there.
strange.
But we were getting there, especially what we consider is like the pickup culture that you have, like pickup trucks. We were talking about it a little bit. But can you try to like describe it for our listeners?
Yeah, so a lot of people, including my family, it's actually quite popular amongst the young people right now is to have pickup trucks, big trucks. You may see them on TV shows or whatever, the big jacked up trucks with mud tires. It's very common, very common. And a pickup truck is kind of evolved in something a little bit different than just throwing equipment and stuff on the back, like lumber, or if you're moving, throwing your couch and stuff on the back. It's kind of moved on from that, and it's kind of like a nice vehicle that you drive around that has a bed on it. So, I mean, some of the trucks in the United States are more expensive than cars and SUVs. Yeah. I mean, they're $80,000.
Yeah.
So you're not going to just scratch it all up and throw a bunch of junk on it. So it's
you're taking care of it.
Yeah, it's transformed into like a commuter vehicle now, which is kind of strange because they're very inefficient on fuel, so they're very expensive to operate. But yeah, the pickup trucks, most people have them. Of course, you will use them to move stuff around, but it's kind of like an identity. If you're rural, from one of the rural areas, you'll probably have a pickup truck, often customized in some way to represent your personality. And it's kind of strange because a lot of people don't even haul things with their truck, like a trailer or a horse trailer, cattle trailer. They don't really do that either. It's just they want a truck.
Well, I've heard that actually Ford sells each minute, like, I don't know, 100 of pickup trucks across the states. And that car is actually the most sold car in the world because it's sold so often. Is it because they're breaking down or is it just like more people want to have a pickup?
Well, I think that's a very interesting point I never really thought about. But I would say the likely reason for that is after about 8 or 10 years, Americans want a new vehicle. They phase it out. It's still perfectly functional, still operates, but people want something new. So they go get something. And some companies buy a lot of these work trucks, these Ford F-150s that you're talking about, and they will phase them out after 2 or 3 years because they give them to their employees, they beat them up, they throw a bunch of junk and stuff on them, concrete equipment, all that cool stuff. They just throw on them, they abuse them, and every 3, 5, maybe 7 years, they get new fleets. So we're talking, 100 new trucks that a company might order. Unlike here and some other places, people don't, like, their car just gets them from A to B.
Yeah.
But for Americans, a car is since we're in them so much and use them so much, it's very much part of your identity. What car do you drive is very important in the United States. It doesn't have to be a nice one. The type of vehicle that you drive, whether it's a truck, whether it's a minivan with the soccer moms, or whether it's a sports car, very much identifies who you are and what you're about. Mm-hmm. So people are constantly rotating their vehicles, much more than I think here in Europe. where a car is just means to an end. It gets you from point A to point B. It's not really that important. It's just a car.
I think Serbians are actually a bit different, or maybe like Southeastern Europe. In general, people are here very passionate about their cars, although they usually drive them for longer periods. So 8 to 10 years is quite all right. I think that's good, but you could find people that have the same car for 20 years or something like that, and they're always trying to do something about it, try to keep it in shape. It is a bit different, so we are attached to cars pretty much in the same way, but we don't customize them as much. We just buy a brand that we like. It's usually some German brand, maybe some French, some Italian brands. Not a lot of American brands, to be honest. But anyways, that I've been telling you that this podcast is about like professional development and career. So like for our listeners that are not really certain of the education system in the in the US. So can you please try to like frame it, how it goes from like the start of education up until, let's say, faculty or, I don't know, finishing a law school, whatever?
Yeah, so it's very tiered. So there's definable points in progress. And it's changed a little bit recently with the advent of middle schools. So that's the 5 through 8th, 5 through 7, 5 through 8, depending on where you're at. And it's the transition between elementary and high school.
Okay.
Elementary, I feel like it's fairly basic everywhere. You're just learning to read, write, colors, that kind of cool stuff.
The same stuff.
Middle school, they begin to let you adapt.
So at what age would you start your elementary? What age would you start middle school?
Well, we have preschool now.
Okay,
and a lot of people, specifically wealthier people, if they're going to private school, will put their kids in at a really early age, say 3 years old.
Wow. It's like nursery level.
Yeah, 3, 4. By 5, you're definitely either in preschool if you're struggling a little bit to develop, like developmentally. If you're struggling a little bit, you might take a year and go to preschool before you go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
But 4, 5, 6, by 6 you're in kindergarten. I think you have to be. And then you'll go through your grades to 5th grade, and then you'll graduate from elementary school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a little ceremony. It was kind of cute.
It's just like an end. You don't have like exams or
no.
something.
It's just a milestone to represent that you've gone this far. So yeah, you would graduate elementary school and you move on to middle school, and that's kind of where schools start to integrate. So elementary schools can be dispersed, across a wide area.
Okay.
Say a county might have 6 or 7 elementary schools, but only 1 or 2 middle schools and high schools.
Sure.
So that middle school is the point to where you start meeting other kids from other areas.
Okay.
And then you get together, go through 5th, 6th, 7th, and sometimes 8th grade, and then you will move on to high school. And high school is 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. And that's the point where you start trying to identify what you want to do in your career. So we have trade schools. We call it a VOTEC, vocational technical training.
Yeah.
And you can take stuff like electricity, plumbing, auto mechanic. For the girls, you can do cosmetology. So it's kind of introducing students to new fields and new concepts and see if that's what they like. And it's not just strictly school-based. It's not just strictly academic. It can be. You can choose the route that's strictly academic, or you can choose to introduce yourself into this vocational training, and that's half the day.
And you pick which high school are you going to go to, or how does it go?
Yeah, no. So unless you go to private school, which you have to pay for, you are identified by districts. So they draw districts on a map, and if you live within that area, you go to this high school, and you go to that middle school and that elementary school.
Okay,
so
okay.
It's totally dependent on where you live.
Okay.
Unless you submit an application to move, and then you have to justify why you want to move schools. And it's not an easy process, but they're trying to change that. I can't remember the term that they use. It's like freedom of choice in education or something.
Okay,
like that,
yeah, it makes sense.
To give more of a competitive spirit for schools to acquire and use more resources just to be better.
Yeah.
So if like this capitalistic mentality, that if you're not mandated to go to a school and you can choose your school,
they become lazy.
Yeah, schools will try to compete with each other to get the best students.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good idea. Might be a little too young. I think that's probably better suited for the colleges, but
Yeah. I mean, here is a bit different. So here, at the end of elementary school, you would actually have to go through like an exam or several exams, and then based on your results in elementary school and based on results on that exam, you can opt to go to certain school. We also have vocational schools and like general high schools where you are actually just prolonging the learning of the same things in the elementary school. On vocational schools, as you said, you're going to go into more directed path. So what happens when you finish the high school? So how does that next step goes?
Well, there's a couple of different things that you can do. One of them is community college, which is generally 2 years, and it's most of your standard college level writing, introduction to philosophy, math 101. So you cover the core classes that you're probably going to have to take at almost any college you go to. And it's much cheaper because you don't have to pay housing or whatever. And that's a local. It's in your community. There's usually one within a small radius of most towns and cities. So you can go to that, and it's a cheaper option. Or you can go to university or college. The English call it university. We call it college. You go to college, and you get to pick, right? So you have to take the SAT, usually your 11th grade year in high school. So when you're a junior, you take your SAT, and that score kind of identifies which universities you can get into. I didn't score very well on my SATs, so I couldn't go to the top universities. Mm-hmm. But some people, I was in class with a guy that got perfect score on his SAT and still decided to come to the same university. Okay. So the SAT isn't that important. Most colleges will look at many other things like what you have experienced or what your experience is, whether you volunteer, whether you played sports, whether you took leadership roles, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And you can actually do that through high school. I mean, I'm guessing sports. I've heard of it, but about like leadership roles and stuff like that, you can actually have those kind of experiences through high school. Yeah.
So for example, a lot of people will start working or volunteering with the fire department's rescue squad, because if they're thinking about becoming a fireman or a paramedic or a doctor, they may start to volunteer with those sorts of things, and then you can put that on your CV or on your resume. Like, I'm a member of the volunteer rescue squad or fire department in my area. That's obviously going to have a positive effect on your application.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. It's not big. It's not a whole lot, but it's something that says I am willing to go out and try new things and introduce myself to new opportunities, that kind of thing.
So how is volunteering in general viewed upon, let's say, later on in your life? Is that like beneficial experience overall, or like just for getting to know certain professions, or...
You want my honest opinion or a very
you can go either way, because here why I'm saying this or why I'm asking you is because here not a lot of high school students would actually volunteer to do any sort of thing, so it's kind of a new thing. It's going on. You can volunteer to be part of some NGO or maybe do something for Red Cross or some charity organization, but like outside of that, to actually go, for example, to a mechanic or maybe volunteer to do something like that is not really present in these areas.
So it's actually a requirement to graduate high school. You got to do 10 hours of community service or volunteer. They're synonymous. You can community service is something that's usually prescribed, whereas volunteering is usually something that is voluntary. But those two terms are used interchangeably. There's a big emphasis put on volunteering, giving back to the community. Although I don't think it doesn't really change anything. So I mean, there's a big push to do it. It's highly encouraged, but at the end of the day, I don't necessarily see it being that advantageous.
Yeah.
For an application committee, people love it. People love to see that you're giving back to your communities, that you're
trying out something, at least outside of school, right?
Yeah, but I don't think people that volunteer any further ahead in life or any really more experienced than anyone else. I don't think that's a prerequisite to doing well. I would encourage it just because, hey, why not? But
why not? Yeah.
I don't think it doesn't seem as important to me as it does to other people. I think it's something, if you got time, cool. If not, it's not. Nah.
So we're coming to colleges and universities, so you're picking those up. How long do they last? I mean, it was 3-4 years, something like that?
Yeah, well, so if you go to community college first, then it's 2 to 3 years after if you go to a university or a college. But if you come to college straight out of high school, it's 4 years, typically.
Okay.
Some people expand that into 5 and 6 years, specifically when they change majors in college, which I think is something that everyone's like, oh, you should graduate in 4 years. You know, if you're truly exploring and truly finding your passion for education and what academically excites you, then yeah, I think we need to be a little bit more easy on people that are taking longer to finish their education. That being said, some people love to just party and may not do as well on their exams and may fail a few courses or whatnot. That's certainly a possibility as well. And those people would also extend into their 5th and 6th years.
Yeah.
So most people will never tell you why, because they may be a little embarrassed to tell you that they're either flunking out or not doing well, or that they don't really have their mind made up. For Americans, decisiveness is really important.
Yep.
So if you're not knowing exactly what you want to do, if you don't have that mentality, sometimes it can be a little embarrassing for the people, for the people that don't have that. So, yeah, the one thing that I would say has changed most about my outlook from college to post-grad work or my later years in life, when I was younger, I always thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I planned it out, said, I'm going to law school, I'm doing all this stuff. You just lay it out. And it almost puts blinders on you. You don't really see the other opportunities that are there because you're so focused on the goals and objectives that you've set out for yourself. And like I said, in my younger years of college, my first 2 years specifically, I was more like that. And then I decided to study abroad. And after I decided to study abroad, it started to take me down new paths. I got an internship in Congress and stuff like that. I never would have imagined myself doing. I never anticipated that and never set that as a goal. But I think when I removed the blinders, so to speak, that extreme decisiveness of knowing or thinking I knew exactly what I wanted to do, as soon as I removed those, so many more opportunities opened up.
So you changed from a tunnel vision to more open-minded, and that brought you some more some new experiences that maybe kind of shifted your perspective a little bit, right?
Exactly. And because I studied abroad, I ended up doing my master's as well in England. So, a lot of the things that seem to come in from the side as almost like a surprise, like, oh, I didn't think I was going to do that. Yeah. They now have defined who I am today.
Yeah, of course.
And again, I always thought I wanted to go to law school. Guess who's not a lawyer?
So going through your education system, how big of a support are you getting from the education system itself to like career advisors and stuff to kind of get you some proper information about what it takes to actually work in certain area, maybe giving you like some kind of let's say outlook perspective, that what you can do with this or that degree. Is that like something that you have in the States?
Yeah, so getting a job and job outlook and job prospects is a massive part of university. And I will say I think American universities do an excellent job of this. That doesn't mean that everyone uses it, and it doesn't mean that it works out for everyone. but most programs require you to do an internship.
Yep.
So, for example, there's a Bachelor of Arts, and that usually entails some kind of foreign language and some kind of philosophy or global outlook courses. And then there's a Bachelor of Science. So in criminology, in my program, the Bachelor of Arts meant that you took another language and that you took a minor. Whereas the Bachelor of Science for me was you do an internship.
Sure.
And so they have job fairs. Obviously, the job fair gets you your internship. And then once you're in your internship, you network, you explore. And this is all requirements. This isn't something that you can just decide to do. So they're really pushing people down that path. And then, like you said, you have academic and career advisors to say, this is what it's going to take to get here. These are the skills that you have. If you want to be this, then you need to do that.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
So I really think Americans and American universities, this emphasis on making sure you have some kind of opportunity when you leave. Because, I mean, everyone hears the prices of American universities. If you're going to pay that much, you should have some small predictability or some job security on the back end of like, hey, we can get you a job. And that is a huge part of the American rankings in university is the percentage of people that get a job within 6 months or 1 year after they graduate. And that factors into what number that university turns out to be on the table of top 10 or 100.
So what was your experience with let's say, career advisor team or career service?
So I didn't use that as much.
Why not? you had the same tunnel vision at the time, or
no? Because I had established a network of people that I knew. Nepotism runs quite deep in the United States as well. Even though it's very capitalistic, very ambitious, very I want the best worker, I want the best people. The concept of nepotism and knowing people is very important as well.
So you think trust trumps maybe abilities?
Yeah, if they know that you're a good worker, they're going to find a place for you. So if you intern in a place, when I left my internship, I had job offers. Of course, I wasn't done with my education, so that wasn't particularly relevant for me. But the career services itself didn't find me the job.
Okay.
It was all the connections that you make after, which I can't emphasize enough. And, from our masters, I think that was the biggest takeaway from that is the network of people that you meet.
Exactly.
So
that's why you're here.
Exactly. So, I think knowing people and I would say a lot of graduates don't necessarily use the career services as much because a lot of them acquire the jobs through knowing someone, knowing a family friend, a cousin, an uncle, or knowing someone else that was in your class that got a job there, something like that. That is very important as well. So while they have all these opportunities and concepts of, hey, we'll find you a job, we'll help you find a job, while they do have that, it's not as used as you might think. Because some people that don't have that would be like, oh my gosh, I would be there every day talking to my advisor, counselor, really trying to figure it out. But I don't think it's used as often as people think that it might be.
But using that kind of service, it is beneficial, I mean, to most people, right?
No, of course. I mean, even if they don't get you the job, it will help you understand what you've got to do to get where you want to go.
Yep.
So if you have goals set up, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to have your own business or whatever, they can really explain or set out through a chart, a diagram, Venn diagram, whatever. They can really show you the progress you're going to need to get there. And it contextualizes that for a lot of people. It really says, oh, okay, I've got to go out and do these things, get an MBA, go to law school, which is very different than here, right? Because a lot of our professions have their own level of graduate degrees after college.
That's what you do. So after college, if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something, you go to like a special law school, med school.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have business school, you have law school, med school. And anything that requires a lot of experience or technical understanding usually will have its own advanced level degree. Doesn't mean you have to do that, which I think is different than here. For example, you can do my degree as an undergrad, criminology, law, and society, and you can work as a paralegal, and then they can train you to take the bar. You never have to go to law school. And if you pass the bar,
that's it.
Then you're a lawyer.
Or you can be even further away from the law and then go to like an internship or a traineeship, pass the bar, and you're a lawyer, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's entirely possible. What I would say, though, is that most people do go to law school and go to med school instead of just opting to take the test on their own, because bizarrely, the schools and those institutions train you to pass those exams.
Yeah.
They don't train you to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and a lot of people don't really know why that is. For example, your first 2 years of law school are mostly coursework, and then your third year is your internship. So I guess they're saying, okay, well, 2 years, we're going to teach you all the legal doctrines and all that, and then that's to pass the exam, and then you're going to go get the experience on your third year through your internships, through various other opportunities. It could be an externship as well. And then after you do that, now you're holistic. You have both the academic experience and you have the professional legal experience of arguing law. I think I'm not certain on this, but I do think you have to argue a case, whether it's a traffic case or whatever. I do think you have to argue a case in court before you can graduate. I think. Yeah. I could be wrong there.
That's pretty cool. So, like, if you go to a business school, law school, med school, at what age approximately, if you're doing it the fastest possible, could you actually start your professional career, finishing up education?
So there's something called dual enrolled courses, and they're high school courses that people with master's degrees through the community colleges are allowed to teach. So basically, you would take like AP government. So we have to learn U.S. government our senior year. You can take AP or dual enrolled government, and you can get high school credit and college credit simultaneously for that course.
Oh.
So now a lot of people are graduating high school with associate's degrees or 2-year degrees from college because they're a lot harder, they're a lot more intense, but if you're going to do the work, you might as well do a little bit more work and get twice the credit. So you have people graduating high school 18, 19 years old with their high school diploma and an associate's degree that they can take to any university, any public university, and get credit for that.
Okay. So it expedites the process.
Correct. Yeah. So, and then that just bumps down the timeline. So you can I graduated high school at 17, had my bachelor's degree finished at 20, and took a year off to teach, and then came back and finished my master's degree. So I was 23 when I finished my master's degree.
That's pretty cool. I mean, and taking a year off, how is that viewed upon in the States? That's like a regular thing?
No, it was actually quite strange, bizarre, say 5-10 years ago. But a lot of people are starting to realize that A, burnout is a huge thing. You can really get burnout of education. And B, your younger years, your 20s are the best time, right? So get out, go travel a little bit, get some other experience, get some traveling experience, get some work experience. There's been a new emphasis on general experience, not just academic. So it's becoming it's becoming more popular. I wouldn't say popular between high school and college as much as it is between your first college degree and your graduate degree.
Okay.
A lot of people now are considering or do take time between the two. Whereas before it was just a rush to the end. Get to the finish line, finish school, then you're done.
Start a career.
Now it's a little bit different. And I think people are wanting to travel more. Traveling's become more accessible. It's become more popular with Instagram, Facebook. Everyone wants to show off where they've been and what they're doing. So that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think in a good way, because I think general experience is very important.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what did you do during that off year?
So I went and taught English in China for a year. Again, one of those things I never saw myself doing, and the opportunity just presented. I'm like, okay, cool. That's worth a shot. So basically, anyone interested in teaching English, you get I think it was 8-week course, 16-week course. It wasn't that long. Maybe it was 12, meet in the middle. But it was a fairly short course that goes through the general policies of teaching and the general techniques and whatnot. So you do that, and then you're licensed to go teach English. As long as if you're not a native English speaker, I think you have to take a test or something to prove that like you meet that level.
Yeah, Emma took a test, right?
But yeah, so once you finish that, then you're free to teach. So I went to Nanjing in China and taught some 10th graders conversational English. So it was quite fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So how was your experience in living in China?
China is...
As an American, especially.
Yeah, it's a very different... Can't emphasize. It's very different. Some people may view that as bad. Some people may view that as amazing. It's just so different than the American lifestyle in almost every respect. You know, I didn't have a car, which was really weird for me. I mean, a year without a car, it just felt strange. You get that like itch. You just want to drive somewhere. You don't have a car. Everything's a lot smaller because it's more densely populated. Smaller cars, smaller apartments, small refrigerators. You know, us Americans, we love to eat. So when I can only store a few little items in my what we would call a mini fridge, it's just the inconveniences that seem irrelevant at first, but when you stack them all on top of each other, it's just such a dynamic environment. The lifestyle change is so drastic that it's very different. I wouldn't call it great. I wouldn't call it bad. Just very, very different. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And how was your interaction every day with people?
So my students were amazing. They would clap when I would walk in because they were excited. They really liked the idea that I was an American or that I spoke English, fluently because a lot of the kids really wanted to learn English. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them really wanted to get better at speaking and conversation because they love movies like The Avengers and they love Justin Bieber. So they want,
of all the people.
exactly. I was like, when I had to play Justin Bieber in class, I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
You didn't envision that coming.
No, but then some of the kids Imagine Dragons and stuff like that. So I did change it up a little bit, but yeah, they really wanted to learn English, and that was nice because American students can be kind of difficult because they have to be there. Chinese students want to be there. They really want to learn. Some of that's like forced through familial policies, we'll say.
Yeah,
their parents really want them to do the best and get the best grades. So they may be encouraged in that way.
Yeah, pushed.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the students were very attentive, very, very well behaved. Unlike me when I was a student, I was a little rambunctious, a little wild. I got in trouble quite a bit. So I was glad.
Any funny stories from that time? I mean, now funny, maybe they weren't funny at the time.
When I was a student?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing was, in America, athletes are revered, just like in many places.
Yeah.
So I was an athlete. I played sports.
Which sports did you play?
I played baseball and golf. Yeah. Okay. In high school. When I was younger, I played American football, baseball, basketball. And then,
you name it.
yeah, you play it all, right? That's a huge part of our culture is sports. So most kids try sports at a young age. We call them Little League.
Yeah.
So everyone goes to Little League or the recreational leagues and they play. And it's really good for social interaction, social cohesion, social learning. So I would highly encourage that. But yeah, So I was a student, and I was an athlete, so you get passes on things most other students wouldn't get passes on. So I was the chatterbox. I would always talk to everyone and get myself and them included in trouble. But one day, the entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive, even in high school. So these clubs would try to make money, so they would sell stuff like cookies. And I wanted cookies. I was very hungry, so I wanted to go get cookies. And we got a break halfway through our hour-and-a-half class, and we were patently told, you can't go get cookies. You cannot have cookies. Like the teacher didn't want us to get them, so we couldn't have them. Well, of course, I didn't listen to that. I went and got cookies, and I didn't realize one of the chocolate chips was stuck.
In your tooth?
Yeah. So she come back to class, and she's like, did you go get cookies? I was like, no, I didn't get cookies. And I smiled.
It showed.
It was stuck in my tooth. She's like, go to the office. So I got written up for that and had to spend a little time in detention for getting cookies. But I didn't do anything violent or mean or aggressive. I was just like very mischievous. I was always looking to get other people in trouble, talking all of class. I was not a very good student.
So what does detention mean? I mean, are you just put in like an isolated room?
Yeah, it's like solitary confinement for the rest of the day.
You're learning prison from you.
Yeah, exactly.
No wonder your prisons are overwhelmed these days.
The prison structure runs deep. We're getting them at a young age. Yeah, no, you literally just sit in a white room where all the walls are completely blank, and you have to sit there and study. And if you have nothing to do, they make you read the dictionary.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it makes sense.
It's different.
It would be considered here, I think, violation of human rights or something like that. To be honest.
Yeah. What is that?
What are human rights? Well, you don't have to abide by the same rules as we in Europe have. But anyway, so you had a nice internship. You had. You've been going through college and everything. You said that you decided to study a little bit abroad. I know that it was England, but maybe you could give us a bit more perspective on it.
Sure. So I technically studied abroad 3 times because I did a little exchange program before I went to China to teach. I went and did an international relations program. It was only 2 weeks, but technically, I think that's studying abroad.
Yeah, it's like was it part of a course? Or?
Yeah, I got credit for it.
Okay.
It was like 2 credits, but I got credit for it.
Cool.
That was quite informal and just basically like get to travel China. And yeah, you meet and greet some ambassadors. I think we met the Romanian ambassador and some other, very important political people. But that was somewhat informal. And then my more formal was my 3rd year or my 2nd year, which would be junior year of college. I went and studied abroad at Oxford, and I did. It was a semester, so you show up in the UK or specifically Oxford and Cambridge. They do 3 terms. Well, you go for 1 term.
Yep.
And then George Mason, the school I attended for undergrad, they sent a professor over, and then you took a 4-week course, and that finished out your semester. So I was there for Hillary term, which was January to March, I believe.
Hillary term.
Yeah, they don't call it
Lent term.
Yeah, they call it Hillary. Not like Hillary Clinton, but
Bill was in Oxford, anyways.
That's why. No. It's spelled with 1 L, not 2 L's.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that, and I was at Trinity, and I studied. I was placed at Trinity, I should say.
Yeah.
Some Trinity students might get upset.
Did you get a hat on to be placed like in Harry Potter?
Everybody sits down, and it's like, you go to Trinity. You go to. There was only 3: Trinity, New College, and Christ Church.
Okay.
They were the only 3 that the study abroad students were placed at.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was some kind of posh,
Yeah.
Not sure what that was.
Trinity is considered to be also the most, the richest college, actually, right?
No, I think theirs is Christ Church. I could be
Christian.
mistaken.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was the same kind.
It's at the top. It's very wealthy as well.
Yeah.
But so I studied jurisprudence and punishment and corrections there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was again when I really thought I wanted to go to law school. So jurisprudence, we actually talk about that a lot, and that was actually a very good foundation for my criminological studies as well, because it begins to understand why we're telling people to do things through laws.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. It was very stressful, very, very hard, many hours in the library. And then because I went there and enjoyed it so much, really enjoyed the environment, the atmosphere, the parties, the dinners, all that. I applied to Cambridge for my master's, and that's where
we met.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I mean, would you say that studying in the UK was, let's say, more burdensome on you than studying in the US?
Absolutely, and it's a different type of education. American education is very independent. Do it if you want, and if
there are exams you're going to fail or whatever.
I'd describe it as manufactured education. So almost all of my classes were 60, 70 students, some 40, some of them. The later you get into your education, they get smaller.
Yeah.
Very rarely did I have any classes less than 40 people. So it's a lot of people in there in class. So it's PowerPoint, do the reading if you want. If you don't, oh, well, not my problem.
Yeah.
And they go through the PowerPoint, and that's really how you learn. There's not a lot of discussion because there's so many people. Also, Americans in those kind of classes aren't that willing to talk, which is very surprising if anyone's listening from Cambridge, because I never stopped talking.
But you were an outcast, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the Americans, in my program especially, very willing to talk, engage, debate. Yeah. Whereas I think for pretty much the rest of the world, that's not. Well, we talked about earlier. Americans are very willing to get into the topics and argue about the stuff that other people are like, nah, we'll leave that. We'll let that go.
Yeah. You're more prone to opening up controversial topics and discuss them. Yeah. At least in that sense, not feeling offended if maybe somebody has a different opinion than yours. That's what my experience was, not just with you, but with other U.S. students in Cambridge in general. Whereas most of the Europeans would like, oh, we have to abide by certain rules and like be politically correct. And that stops you from actually discussing some topics. They are considered a no-go. You don't discuss them; they are taken as it is. Whereas you challenge the status quo, I think, in the U.S. in general.
I'm fairly certain that every ethics class we had, when I raised my hand, the professor was like, "Oh God, not this."
In
guy.
The UK,
yeah, not this guy again. What is he going to say? Because and that's another thing that's very, very different. In America, it's totally acceptable to push back against your professors. If they say something that you don't think is true, or even if they just make an error, pointing it out, identifying, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Some professors might get a little upset, but generally we can go back at professors. Whereas here, it's like, yes, sir. Yes,
here,
ma'am.
meaning the UK.
Yeah. Well, Europe and even in China, right? I mean, they didn't dare say anything to me, the students. Sure. And, sometimes I messed up. The one I had a complete just brain fog, and I told the kids that there were 26 letters in the alphabet, and I see one little girl's hand go up in the corner, and she really didn't want to say anything, but she's like, "Isn't it 25, or is there a new letter?" I was like, "Oh yeah, no, it's 25. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said 26, but yeah, it was very like."
It was nice that one of them actually had the courage. It was a big
moment that she was like, "Good." No, she really thought that she was missing out. Like there was a 26th letter that she didn't know about, and she really wanted to like, "Oh my gosh, did I miss something?" It wasn't. She wasn't trying to correct me. She was curious if she was missing something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, they're 10th graders anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back to Cambridge, I mean, for me, it was a life-changing experience, to be honest. I never had that kind of experience like you going to China, going to one time to UK or having some more international experience. So in that sense, it was a great opportunity to be in with people from all over the world, as we had many debates about very different topics, having something to do with what we were actually studying or going more broadly. But from your point of view, how did you see the let's say the life of a student in Cambridge, the debates, the people going around, and of course at the end we've touched upon the studies, but you can go into further depth.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I saw is a timidness to really speak your mind. And I think a lot of people look at these institutions and they say, oh, well, they must just have the best conversations. It's not really until that you get personally comfortable with someone that you actually start opening up your academic mind.
Yeah.
And I would say that can be quite true in the States as well. But the one thing that I will say about Cambridge and Oxford specifically, those two, from my experiences, is when you do get comfortable with someone on a personal level, the discussions, the sky's the limit, because everyone has such a wide breadth of knowledge. I was sitting in Q-Bar talking about black holes with one of the physicists, and then turn around and Mitch and I start arguing about social contracts. You can really transcend many different topics.
Yeah, your brain works 24/7 basically.
Yeah. So, and I really enjoyed that. And some people won't, especially on the politically sensitive topics, they won't really open up, and some never did, what they really thought. And I think that's a true detriment to education generally, because unless you can share genuine thoughts and genuine experiences, we can't really help each other, because we may have very different opinions. But one day you might be a researcher and I'm a policy guy, and I call you up and say, hey, what's the latest on this? If I can trust you to tell me what you think and what you believe, then I will do that. If you never do that, if you never show me that side of you, I'm not going to call you. Even though you might be the best researcher, might be the most knowledgeable person in that subject, why am I reaching out to you if I never felt like you actually told me? And I would, just because you don't have the same philosophical outlooks or same political basis as I do, doesn't mean I don't know intelligence when I see it. I'm very willing to ask other people what they think. And maybe even act on it. Even if it defies my principles, if that's prevailing wisdom, if that's prevailing theory, I'm willing to go with it. But if you don't show people that side of you, I think it's very difficult for them to later reach out, because a lot of times you revert back to the memories, specifically the first memory that you had of them. It's like, oh, well, how did they treat me? Or how, what did we talk about? Did I feel like it was genuine? There were a lot of conversations as well that I had in Cambridge. I'm like, this is so fake. This is so superficial. This is a meaningless conversation.
Yeah, exactly. The small talk, as the Brits would say.
Yeah.
So what I could deduct from what you were saying is basically that learning stuff or having some knowledge about stuff is not enough. It's also about how you approach the matter, how you are actually willing to discuss it, and willing to test maybe your knowledge, going into debates. Testing your arguments, so having a wider outlook on the area that you're researching or studying or working in can actually benefit you long term in career, or maybe even get you, as you say, nepotism or something.
Yeah.
Maybe get you a recommendation for a job or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it's imperative that people learn communication skills, because one of my minors, or my minor, there's only one in college, was English or writing and rhetoric. And a lot of our courses focused on how do you convince people, how do you persuade people, but also how are you an effective speaker? How are you
expressing yourself?
Yeah, exactly. And that's very, very important. And I think that's something that a lot of people at Cambridge did very well.
Yep.
But generally speaking, if you don't have the capacity or the know-how to define exactly what you're speaking about, it doesn't really do you any good to have that knowledge. For example, the metaphor that or the analogy that was given in one of my classes is this. Our professor said, you can have the best engineer in the world. They can come up with a masterful design for something, or something so groundbreaking and innovative that it's just going to be revolutionary. But if they can't tell you how to use it, if they can't explain their invention, what good does it do?
It's worthless.
Yeah. So that got me thinking, like, how important it is to not just know things, but be able to communicate things with people in a clear, effective, and meaningful way. Because if you can't do that, that knowledge is almost useless.
Yeah.
Because we're all about sharing ideas and concepts as humans. That's what we do on an everyday basis, and especially when I come here. I think you're probably tired of me saying, well, in the United States, but it's a way to for me to compare and understand what I'm seeing and doing here.
Yeah.
As I say, oh, well, this is the way we do it, and then this is the way you do it, and it's just an exchange of ideas. And some people, whether it's me or them, may take that and do something revolutionary in their country. They may say, oh, well, Americans do that. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, well, if I just refine that idea or refine that concept a little bit, that would work really well here. That's what the world and communication is.
Exchange of ideas or knowledge in general. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've studied criminology in the UK. Yeah. How did that happen?
So, not gonna lie, I looked at the LLMs because there's still part of me even to this day that wants to do law, that wants to go to law school. That part is rapidly decreasing, but it's still there.
The fire is still burning.
Yes, exactly. So just a little bit. It's more of like a little flame, not a fire, but so I basically wanted to get into. Well, let me take a step back. The reason I go overseas, specifically for my master's, is because it's cheaper, significantly cheaper in the United States, but there's no entry exams. I don't do well in entry exams. That's not my forte. I just, for whatever reason, common knowledge and math is not really.
So for a master's degree in these states, you would have to have an entry exam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, even law school, the LSAT, med school, the MCAT. For grad school, it's the GRE.
Okay.
So you have to take those exams to get into school. I want to go to some of the best schools because I feel like I've demonstrated my capacity to learn, specifically new concepts, some very difficult, like jurisprudence. So I wanted to go to a really good school. It felt like I couldn't do that as well in the United States, so I applied to LSE, Cambridge, Oxford, the University of Melbourne, which would have been a really fun time. Living the life up in Australia. No, I'm happy with Cambridge, but
would you be stuck like for a year? They closed up the borders when pandemic.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah. So I think UK was better.
It worked out for me in the end.
Yeah.
But no, so the reason I selected criminology is because that's what my bachelor's degree was in, and that's the way I could get into Cambridge, right? So, I mean, they look at my resume, my experience, my transcripts, and that's the opportunity. I mean, I could have taken something else. I may have been able to do international relations, some politics, or maybe even a law course. I don't think that was an option at Cambridge, but at Edinburgh it was. I could do the LLM there, but not at Cambridge because I think you had to have a JD, which makes no sense. Why would I get a doctorate degree in the States and then come do an LLM? Because that's a master's.
So, wow, that's strange.
Yeah, it's a Juris Doctorate.
Yeah. I thought that was like undergrad. No,
your Juris Doctorate is your doctorate in
law.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So why would you get your JD as an American and go do an LLM? If I look at that as somebody's resume, I'm like, unless it was a very niche, like international law, which American universities I don't think teach.
Yeah,
I don't think international law is really a thing that they do. So maybe if it was something like that, very specific.
Yeah, because you guys don't really care about international law, to be honest.
No, we actively defy all the international governing bodies.
U.S. law is all it takes.
Hey, International Criminal Court, pound sand. They don't really care. But But yeah, so that was my way to get into Cambridge. So I went in thinking studying death penalty area, something like that, and then took a course, cybercrime, loved it, wrote my dissertation on that, and the rest is history.
So now you're working as a...
cybersecurity, something, yeah.
So like UK studies or Cambridge actually shifted you towards cybersecurity.
Exactly. Yeah, I wrote my dissertation really not knowing that much about cybersecurity. So it was very, a lot of the information that I covered was very new to me. So I quite enjoyed really diving into something that was unfamiliar territory. So I wrote that. A lot of the concepts in it were like, these are kind of cool. You know, Tor networks, anonymity online, the international dispute. So, you know, if I commit a cybercrime here, who has jurisdiction over it? How do we go about getting treaties and extradition treaties and stuff like that worked out to really curb cybercrime? Because until we work together as an international community and kind of give up a little bit of our sovereignty, you know, you're going to have criminals located in these safe havens all around the world.
Yeah,
that the local authorities, to be quite honest, have bigger fish to fry. You know, they have properly violent crime going on their streets, and they're like, fraud? Why do I care about fraud? I'm like, go away, leave me alone.
Apparently the State Department cared about fraud.
Well,
they caught some of our guys, man.
We'll keep knocking on the door, but you know, some countries like Bangladesh, they're not going to answer. They don't care.
Yeah,
maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe they do care, but you get my point. They really genuinely have bigger problems, whether it's gang violence in Mexico and stuff like that. So when you call up and, you know, if the state police, the Virginia State Police calls up or goes through the embassy and says, hey, we're investigating this crime of extortion or fraud. I mean, do you really think they're going to make that their priority?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So until we get some kind of institution or governing body or common culture around crime, specifically cybercrime, to kind of curb that, I don't think we're going to make substantial leaps towards stopping it. Mm-hmm.
So what does a cybersecurity consultant do, actually?
So cybersecurity is a really large field. It's not, there's no one definition for it. That's not an easy answer necessarily. Cybersecurity, basically, I would say, is security revolving around cyber infrastructure. So it can be going to a doctor's office and saying, hey, your network's not secure, you're talking out to the internet, you're not using VPNs for your doctors and remote locations, that kind of stuff. That's cybersecurity.
Like setting up infrastructure.
Yeah. Physically installing and configuring networks, that's cybersecurity. Consulting, saying, hey, you should do these things. Like maybe you shouldn't connect that router and that switch in this way. Yeah, that's cybersecurity.
Some policy decisions or something like that.
Yeah, and then you can go on the policy side. You can go into informing state and national governments how to better equip themselves to deal with it, or you know, your GDPR laws here, or the laws that we have in the states regarding data. How institutions and bodies can become compliant with that. So they're not that familiar. So they throw around all this jargon and language and these bills and these requirements that some people just don't know. They're like, I don't know how to get there. I want to secure my data, but I don't know what to do. Like, what is encryption? How do I do that? So you can just talk with people, say, hey, if you download this or use this Tor network, like that kind of stuff, that's encrypted. And this is what encryption is. And this is how you achieve good encryption. So that in itself is cybersecurity, because you're securing systems and networks that run on digital infrastructure. Yeah. And that really transverse. It covers almost every area that we have in modern life. Mm-hmm. Almost everything is connected somehow through a digital network. Yeah. So cybersecurity is very much an up-and-coming field. And I think people think it's like the guy sitting there at the computer hacking. And in reality, it's really not that at all. It's just basic understanding of computers and the systems and networks that they work on, and how we can make it a little bit tougher. Target hardening is what we call it in criminology. Hardening the target, the server, the computer, the workstation, whatever it is. That's cybersecurity. And it's,
minimize the risk of potential data leak or data breach or whatever.
Cybersecurity can be like, hey, you should lock that thumb drive in a box or a cage when you leave. That's cybersecurity.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be with the online sphere.
Yeah, exactly. It can be physical security related to cyber networks or cyber devices. So, it's not the guy sitting at the computer with the black hood on, banging out code. That's not really cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is much more fundamental, much more basic, much more encompassing basically everything that you do. Like even like cars now. Like there's cybersecurity revolving around cars.
Yeah.
Because people are hacking into Teslas and like shutting them off. Like, it's
just to prank them or
just, I mean, that it can lead to dangerous things. I guess, I'm not sure, but I presume if you can do that, you can take over the car's handling.
Yeah.
Speed it up, slow it down. Yeah. I don't know if you could necessarily turn the steering wheel, but like, anything, I know the pedals on
anything
those
that a computer can do.
Well, they're digital pedals. They don't have the wires anymore.
Yeah.
Like the throttle cable. That doesn't exist anymore in cars. It's all a sensor, and the sensor sees how far you push the pedal, and that responds accordingly with your fuel system.
Yeah.
Puts more fuel or less fuel, depending on the pedal positioning. So it's a sensor that relays data back to the computer. So you could certainly speed up a car if you took over control of the car's computer system.
But you can also, I think, change the direction of the steering wheel, because there are cars, especially like the more expensive cars, that have that option of lane assist, or like not moving between the lanes.
Yeah, good point.
So if you hack the computer within the car, you can probably do that as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, how can you actually start working as a cybersecurity consultant? How did that happen for you?
Yeah, so in the United States, there's something called Sec Plus. I mean, experience always will rule the day. But if you're talking like entrance exams or qualifications, there's something called Sec Plus or Security Plus. The leading companies like CompTIA or something. Yeah, CompTIA. And it's just an exam that covers the basic concepts in cybersecurity. It covers encryption, networks, wireless access points like your routers and stuff, and threats like Trojan horses, worms, malware, crypto malware, ransomware, all that cool stuff. It's a basically exam, and that covers all that. When you pass it, it says that you're proficient enough to understand the concepts, and most people will take that as like, okay, this person is competent or knowledgeable enough that I can train them to do things that I need to do.
That's like sort of a license, but not really.
It's a certification.
Yeah, certification, sorry.
Yeah, so that's, and it's really not that hard to get. Obviously, I had some experience with it through my dissertation, but, it's very attainable. And once you get that, it kind of signals to the people in the field that A, you're serious, and B, you carry in some knowledge that is good to have. And then you can work your way up depending on which aspect you want to get into. You can get into ethical hacking. You can get into networks. You can get into cloud computing.
Yeah.
So there's many different aspects and routes that you can go. Say you want to work for, cloud computing now is the massive thing. So there's certifications by Microsoft, Azure, that's their cloud computing, and then Amazon Web Services. So you can get those certifications, and then that's only going to make you more marketable. So in the cybersecurity field, certifications rule the day. It's not about the degree, because there are
not a lot of degrees actually for cybersecurity, right? Maybe some courses here and there.
Well, it's starting to become a big thing in the United States. A lot of because I was looking at cybersecurity master's degrees because I wanted to get into more of a management realm, and having a master's in cybersecurity both signals your technical competence and your managerial capabilities of doing a master's upper level coursework, working with other people. So that was the way I was looking at going. But yeah, there are a lot more universities, and specifically the past 5 years. A lot of these are very new programs. The first rounds of graduates are now coming out of these programs and getting jobs. But a lot of people will tell you, it's not really that important, because what they teach you in that school is good, but it's not what you're going to do in your job. Because your job can, just like I said, it can be IT support. It can be consulting. It can be, an engineer configuring
drafting policy documents or something.
So cybersecurity is so wide-ranging. You can't do that in 4 years. So a lot of the people will teach you on site and at the location or at the job. They'll give you the knowledge that you need. You just need to show them that you're competent enough to, or serious enough to understand these concepts, these policies, and work through it. So,
and what do you think in your field, in the cybersecurity, is, let's say, the next big thing, or would be the next big thing?
Cloud computing, like I said, is the big thing now, and I think it's still got room to grow. AI and quantum computing they're gonna give us some real problems.
What is quantum computing? I'm a lawyer. I don't have no idea.
So quantum computing is basically it's an infinitely better computer. So it's infinitely better at calculation because it provides. So basically, regular computer, you have binary 1, 0.
Sure.
Quantum computing, you have 1, 0, and then a quantum state. So it's a little bit of both, but neither. But basically what it does is it exponentially increases the computational power. So the best algorithms that we have today for encryption, it would be solved like that through a quantum computer. Right now, it's still very theoretical. I haven't read the latest research on it, to be honest. I don't know where they're at as far as like getting an operational quantum computer. But I do know that if the theory of the quantum computer is correct and they build a quantum computer, it's going to literally rewrite all of cybersecurity. Because it's going to cause or provide a lot of problems for people that don't have the resources to have quantum computers. So, think of Google, Microsoft, any large state entity. When they get these, it could be, I don't want to throw out gross predictions or overgeneralizations, but this could be this technological singularity that was
predicted decades ago.
Yeah, it could be. It depends on what degree of quantum computing theory is achieved. If it's the upper echelon of what quantum computers are capable of, it could fundamentally change it. Or we could put the brakes on it. We could be like, we're not ready for this yet. Because we do that already, right? With AI and self-driving computers and automation. We've pumped the brakes on all of that. We're like, look, we really need to think this through
before we continue.
Before we implement it fully.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe it's a good idea, but it could have massive negative consequences.
Automation. We can automate so many things.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with the people's jobs that they replace?
Travel.
Right? I will be happy to do that. But, we haven't automated truck driving in the United States. Yeah. We have something like 5 million truck drivers. If you automate, Tesla and a couple of other those companies have tractor and trailers that can drive themselves. Oh, well, you need someone inside of it. Okay, fair enough, but do you? Because if you get to the capability to the point where you don't need someone inside and they take it from hub to hub and then a local tractor and trailer driver picks it up and takes it on the local roads.
Or even like a robot would pick it up or whatever.
It just drives to a big station or a big something or other and just unloads, and then something else or someone else picks it up. Or your little Amazon drones come in and pull out all the packages and take them wherever they need to go. If you do that, what are you going to do with the 5 million people? That
we're talking Fifth Element here, I think.
but so you get my point, is that these technologies have really high, large capabilities, but do we implement them? I don't know. I would say probably not. But you also have quantum computing and AI can solve a lot of our problems. Logistical, environmental, educational, technical, like the stuff NASA could do with a quantum computer, which they may have one. I don't know. I wish I was on the inside like that, but I'm not. But the stuff, the calculations that they can make with a quantum computer will revolutionize the way we look at and interact with our world.
Yeah. Well, that's the stuff with most of the technological innovations, is whether we can prevent them from being used in a way they are not intended to be used, or something detrimental to the society, whether we can actually exclusively use them for the positive benefit. Whereas, and at that point, a lot of regulation comes in. A lot of lawyers come in, state, you can't use this for that or whatever. So we'll definitely see how it goes, and obviously a lot of that area hasn't been regulated yet. There have been talks, I don't know in the States whether it's like cloud computing and stuff, where it has some kind of federal or state legislation for that matter, or no?
Yeah, no, it's they have some and they're working on it, but it's still quite nebulous, and like, is this even practical? The biggest thing about good law is practicality. So yeah, maybe you should be a cyber lawyer. Draft new. I mean, it's going to be big. I think the need for policies and regulations and understanding is going to be very important. So if anyone has an interest in computers and stuff and wants to go to law school, I bet you'll make a lot of money consulting on legal issues, because the legal battles that are coming down the road, massive. Massive.
Yeah, that seems very innovative, and I've seen in Cambridge, for example, that a lot of big law firms are having like legal tech traineeships. So they have people coming in not just from a legal background, but also from a tech background, studying law and vice versa, so that people can actually have knowledge of both technology and law, and they can actually contribute maybe in the policy department at the moment, and maybe later down, further down the line with some contentious battles that will inevitably happen at some point, right? Okay, coming back to some like more personal stories. I know that you've been traveling a lot through the States, and so you've been like 7 times, right?
Yeah.
East to west?
Not fully across, but road trips. Been on 7. I've 4 all the way across and back.
Yeah.
So,
what would you single out from those road trips as being like the biggest experience?
So for someone that hasn't been in the United States, the culture shock of east to west, north to south, state to state, and even parts of states, like you were saying here, Serbia, the north and the south of Serbia are very different. The north and south of California are very different. And then states among themselves are very different, and then regions are remarkably different. So if you do a road trip across the United States, you kind of get to experience all that in one shot. And the United States is remarkably beautiful. There's so many national parks and monuments. I mean, you have Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, and the Grand Tetons, and Glacier National Park, where you could see some nice mountain glaciers, and buffalo running through the fields of Yellowstone or of Wyoming. It's just, there's so much to see and do. And then, down in the southeast, you have Texas, which is an experience within itself. Texas is always
not just in terms of landscape.
Yeah. I mean, their state fair. Oh my gosh, amazing! The state fair there. It's kind of like every state has their own state fair, but it's the time where they have like rodeos and
monster trucks.
Yeah, and derbies where they just take old cars run into each other at full speed. It's hilarious. But the number one thing about
is that like
fair,
a redneck?
yeah.
So
Yes.
can you just define the term redneck for people?
Okay, so the funny part is there's actually a lot of songs out about it now. People that are rednecks love the fact that they're called a redneck. Like, it's not a derogatory or an embarrassing term. They identify as that. Yeah. So a redneck is a really country. It's not. You don't even have to be conservative. You just have to have like a very traditional. You know, you wear your boots, your jeans. You talk usually a little bit strange with a hard Southern accent, and you know, a lot of them like dip, and it's a culture. It's a culture of people that, you know, they
still live in the old way,
yeah,
right?
They love the big trucks. You know, love throwing mud all over stuff, and you know, souping up their
loving
beer.
guns.
Yeah. Guns are a big part of rednecks, and beer. They love their Bud Light.
Bud Light, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people at Cambridge, you guys are. I heard redneck quite a few times. You're such a redneck. But you know, it's not derogatory, and I do come from a place where a lot of that culture. I do. You know, I shoot guns a lot, and I love drinking.
How
beer
many guns are in your house? If you want to share.
Right now, it's not as many as it used to be. Right now, I think we only have, say, 30 or 40. But before it was,
it's like Serbian army.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah,
like
it's like it was in the 200s. But yeah, that's a lot. People love collecting guns. Like, oh, what do you need all this for? No, it's just some of them are beautiful works of art. You know, the woodwork, the engraving on them. They're truly masterpieces, works of art. Yeah. And then some of them, they're fun to shoot. So, for example, you can't shoot a pistol into rocks. That bullet will ricochet and could hit you, whatever. So, like if you're, we have a lot of snakes and stuff in the mountains. So if you see like a rattlesnake or something, or you would shoot it with a shotgun, not a pistol. So,
so you have to have variety.
Yeah, guns have different functionalities. You shoot birds with shotguns. You shoot deer with rifles. Pistol could be more self-defense, or like if you're in like heavy wooded area, you'd want like a big pistol for bear, because the bears love to hide and brush, and they could just come out, and they might like you could hear them, but by the time they're on you and you see them, they're only like a couple of meters away. So a pistol, something you can use and maneuver really easily. So yeah, there's different functionality for guns. I mean, do you need 40 or 100? Maybe not, but you know,
at least a few.
Yeah, you got to have a few for variety.
Yeah. So State Fair in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, the best part of the State Fair is the food. It's deep fried everything. Deep fried pickles, deep fried Oreos, deep fried chicken, of course. All the brisket and barbecue.
In which oil? Palm oil or
peanut oil?
Peanut oil. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are kind of allergic to peanuts, so some will gravitate away from peanut oil.
Yeah. Just wondering, because there was a movie. Like a documentary made by DiCaprio, like about environment, about the impact of palm oil on it. So when you told me like deep fried, I just remember. Anyways, I'm interrupting you. So.
Yeah, no. Texas, well, the state fairs generally, it doesn't have to be just the Texas State Fair, but it's a great time to go out and see some rednecks, but some really classy people as well. Some really nice people. The South is very welcoming, very hospitable, very nice. And yeah, so the state fairs are huge. You have like Mardi Gras in Louisiana, loads of parties. Yeah, you have the beaches of Florida. So yeah, the East is a little bit older, and the West is a little bit more young, vibrant,
modern,
hipster. Yeah. So you know, every part of the country has something to go see and do. If you're into sports, you have the Hall of Fames in like Ohio. And the Charleston and Savannah, Georgia, very old colonial cities down in South Carolina and Georgia. So no matter where you're at, there's always something to do, or somewhere to go, or some cool city to see, which will bring me to my next point, that a lot of people, I ask, have you been to America? They say, yeah, I have. And, they
Ask
go to
them
New
where.
York City. Yeah, exactly. And they're New York City, LA, Chicago. Amazing cities, but there's so much more to see. So much more, cities that are so much more unique.
Yeah.
And have a more identifiable culture. Like you go into the city and you're like, oh yeah, this is different. This is different. I'm not sure you could say that if you walked into, or if you took the metro in and hopped out at Grand Central, or
skyscrapers all over the place. Like every city starts to look the same. Maybe this has 50 stories, this one has 100, or this looks like this, or this is like that, but they are skyscrapers in general.
Yeah.
But you made an interesting list, I think a couple nights back, of, let's say, lesser-known cities in America which should be visited.
Yes. So I generally ask people that haven't visited America, well, where do you plan on going first? And the top of the list is Miami, Boston, let me start from number one. New York, number one.
Of course.
New York, LA, Chicago, Boston, Miami, maybe Houston. Yeah. So I'll finish with
you
those.
mentioned Atlanta, which we were struggling to see the reason by.
Yeah, a few people told me Atlanta. I'm like, there's absolutely no reason to go to Atlanta.
We have a famous basketball player there, so maybe Serbians will go there.
Fair enough. The Coca-Cola factory is there, but that's all I can think of. I can't think of many reasons I would want to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I'm a big baseball fan, so maybe a Braves game. But so the cities that I say are so much I would rather visit, or you could pay a visit to and never be disappointed, would be some like San Diego, Santa Fe, Phoenix, Dallas, Tampa.
For what would be those cities? Like why would you?
So San Diego is a beautiful city with a very moderate climate. Okay. Amazing. The people are really nice. They're not like LA, and they're not San Francisco. They're much nicer. not that there's not nice people in those cities. There's just those cities have a very specific
way of functioning,
person,
vibe.
Okay. Yeah. So San Diego is amazing. I love San Diego. There's wine country close to there, as there is in San Francisco, but very moderate climate, lovely weather, amazing beaches.
No crackheads on the streets.
No, well, a few. There's a lot of homeless and more free-spirited people down there because the weather's so nice and it's so moderate year-round. It's like 70 couple degrees,
which is like 25 Celsius, right? 25. Yeah.
It was very, very pleasant. And then Santa Fe is an amazing, vibrant, younger city. Well, not younger, but it's got a lot of Hispanic culture, really good food. Salt Lake City, it's in the mountains. Skiing's amazing. It's run by Mormons, so it's really, really clean.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Salt Lake City is a heavily Mormon city, so it's very nice, very clean, very wealthy. Park City, where the Olympics were, is not far away. So great skiing, great winter sports. You have Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake, the Salt Flats. So that area is really nice. I really enjoyed it there. And then Dallas, again, very, very wealthy city, very nice city. Get the Cowboys, America's team. You go watch them play. My uncle lives in Dallas, so I spent quite a bit of time there. And then Tampa Bay is the better Miami. Mm-hmm.
That's why Brady moved there.
Yeah. Miami's not so great. Tampa Bay is amazing. And it's on the difference between Miami and Tampa Bay. Miami's on the East Coast, so it's the Atlantic.
Okay.
Shitty water. Like it's brown, the waves in the ocean. It's brown. It's not very nice. On the Gulf side, which is where Tampa Bay is, water's crystal clear. It's really nice. And, Tampa Bay's a younger city. It's not as party-esque. There are parties there, but it's not as like...
It's not like crazy like Miami.
South Beach. Yeah. I mean, if you want to go just to let loose, okay, maybe go to Miami. But if you want to go for a better experience, I would say Tampa Bay. And then, you, like I said, Savannah, Charleston, very, very nice colonial cities. Very quaint, really good food, amazing people, small. So it reminds you of a European city. I'll throw DC out there because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
It's not biased.
You gotta come back to country roads.
Yeah. Exactly. They always take you home. No, I think DC is actually a really nice city as well. It's small, lots of amazing museums and parks, and cool buildings like the Capitol building.
Yep.
Great architecture. And it's not a bad city. It's not like Baltimore where you're going to get mugged. Don't go to Baltimore.
Sorry, Lamar.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a load of amazing cities to go to. And yes, go to New York, but also for every New York and LA you go to, stop by one of the others because they're just as good, if not better. And you'll get to the smaller cities, like I said, have just a very identifiable different culture, and you'll get to experience that, which is very much part of Americana because we are also different. Every state's different, every city's different. So I highly recommend that. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. We're slowly coming to the end. Before we finish, I have like a couple of let's say shorter questions, but you can prolong your answer.
Sure.
That I would like to have your opinion on. And I'm asking them for every guest.
Okay.
So the first one would be, if you could single out one person, whether it's historic, living, or dead, that you would like to have some time to spend with, or like to have a drink or dinner, who would it be and why?
That's a good one. That is a good one. I would have to choose Denzel Washington, an American actor, for those that may not know. He seems like just a really cool, chill person I would love to sit down and have a beer with. But I think that answer very much requires just like a chill environment, like a historical figure.
We were talking about the 20s being very interesting period in time.
I would. Frank Sinatra he's another one of my somebody I envy.
Yeah,
I would like to talk to him, but I'm trying to think of like a really cool historical.
Well, you picked up like a couple of very cool people, It's like Denzel and Frank, all in their own aspects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Denzel's just like sit down, have a good night, have a beer, shoot the shit for a while. Frank Sinatra, I think he's a living legend and a great artist, but
he also knew how to enjoy life, I think. I mean, what I knew about him.
If I could bring someone to now, I would love to bring like, not to get too cliche, is like one of the founding fathers to now. I'd be like, was this what you envisioned? Is this what you thought it would be? So
straight from Mount Rushmore. That would be awesome. Okay, and one other thing is, what would you like to have known at the age of 18 in terms of like professional growth, career, that you know now? Maybe we touched upon it already, but you can.
Yeah, I think I would go in the realm or in the trajectory of nepotism again, understanding how important that is, because even within a company, once you're in it, right, nepotism can get you in, but it also gets you to the top. If people like it, I guess what I'm saying is personality and
personal connections.
Yes.
Like it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing to know people.
Yeah,
and
that aha moment for me reflected in my change between the student I was as an undergrad and the student I was as a grad.
Yeah,
because the student I was as an undergrad, very diligent, always did my work, took education very seriously, because I thought that's what mattered. I thought the 4.0 is what was going to get me somewhere.
Yeah,
and then I realized, hold on, that's not it. I mean, a little bit, but that's not really how this world works.
Yeah.
It's being able to bond and build connections.
Have a pint of Guinness in Q Bar as well.
Exactly. And you saw the difference. I mean, you didn't see me in undergrad, but you saw me as a grad student, and it was very different.
Yeah.
I still take education serious, but understanding that
there is more to that than books.
Having a beer with a group of people is more important than finishing that last article.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I wish I would have learned it younger, because I feel like my network would be even larger.
Yeah.
Now.
That's awesome. One other thing I think we haven't touched upon is your experience in Congress, working in Congress, internship.
Yeah, that was really unique. I was in 2 separate offices. I won't name them, but they were very different offices. One was very go-getter, freshman congresswoman that was phenomenal, but she was trying to get reelected in a heavily contested district. So there was purpose. A lot of the assignments, a lot of the cards that went out, everything was calculated because getting reelected was so important. And then I went to an office later. Guy had been in there 20 couple years. He was in a shoe-in district, which means he was getting reelected as many times as he wanted. It didn't matter. The office was much more casual. It's fine. We had more interns. It was like 6 or 7 interns, when it was only 1 at the other office. And that one wasn't as good of an experience because I got bored. And the first office I was at, I did a lot of tours of the Capitol. I interacted with people a lot more. But in the other office where there were 7 of us, they wanted to pass that experience around.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, dude, why am I here? Like, you don't need me here. So then I took that mentality and I just kind of sat there. But American politics is very interesting when you're inside of it. You realize, now as an intern, you don't get exposure to that much, but you begin to piece together and see the dynamics of politics in the states and votes, because you're always watching every vote, and then you hear the inside commentary on why they're voting this way or why this legislation is dead or what key part they hope passes and that kind of stuff. When you get to hear the staffers that work on the legislation and that write the legislation, you get to hear their perspectives.
Yeah.
That was what was vastly interesting.
Yeah.
And getting to work on some of that stuff was pretty cool as well.
So that was like, how long was that internship?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, I did it from, April to August.
And was it like a paid or unpaid?
5.
Yeah.
5 months. Anyway, it was unpaid.
Yeah.
And it was part of the internship that I had to do for my undergrad. So I could not have gotten paid even if I wanted to. They allow for like a travel stipend or something, but it wasn't even worth doing the paperwork for. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I think it's a majestic experience. I loved hearing it. I didn't know it when we were in Cambridge, so
really?
I only heard about it when you came here. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Any last message or advice for youngsters or our peers from Serbia origin?
Yeah, I would say for people our age, I really appreciate the people that I met in Serbia and their hospitality. It means a lot as a foreigner who doesn't speak another language, for these people that learned English to show them, hey, thank you for learning English and you get to use it. Utility, I think, is very important when you're trying to persuade someone to learn a new language. Like, when are you going to use it? So I really appreciate all the bartenders and friends of friends that took time to speak English with me, even though it was probably much easier to turn to their Serbian friend or the other Serbian people and just speak that way with them. So I really appreciate that. The hospitality means a whole lot. I will definitely remember it. And when I go back to the States, I will tell everyone about my experience here and remind them that Serbia is not...
We're not that bad.
No, Serbia is amazing. But it cracks me up because I didn't really want to say it because it makes Americans look really bad. And I don't mean it as an insult at all, but when I told people I was coming here, they're like, why are you going to the Arctic? Because I thought it was Siberia.
Yeah. We always get that.
No,
you know?
It's not. It's not. It's near Greece. But yeah, so I'll go tell them that this is not indeed the Arctic. And
you were wearing a T-shirt almost every day.
Yeah, and that the people are amazing. And I can't emphasize that enough. I've really had a great time here. And for anybody that's younger, work hard. It's very cliche, but people see hard work, and they see when investment in something, when you're involved, when you really want something to happen. People pick up on that energy, and I see that in work. I pick up on the people around me, the ones that really want to be there, that want to learn, that want to do better, and the people that are just collecting the paycheck.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may not seem like it's paying off, but anybody that's worth anything to you will see it and never get discouraged, because I know, especially in this climate with all social media and all that stuff, people can get very discouraged very easily, seeing other people their age making it to the top. Yeah, well, you're on your own journey. So your journey may take you further than them. It's just a little bit longer. So I think patience and work ethic are very important for anyone growing up in this era, because people will notice both and appreciate it very much.
Corey, I think we couldn't pick a better place to end this.
Well,
thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. First time, so this is new for me.
We broke the dark.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you have a very nice last few remaining days in Serbia, and that we have you here some other time. And of course, you're now considered our ambassador in the States.
Oh, there we go.
Well, thank you so much.
Yep.
Have a nice day.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.